evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Wednesday, January 16, 2019 Brookline Select Board meeting. Calling the meeting to order at this time, which is at 6:30. Right now, we're going to go into item 2, review changes to the agenda, if any. I'd like to make a statement as the first order of business to add item 6B after executive session. And shall the Select Board write a letter of commitment regarding the 2019 to 2022 lease of 624 Grassy Brook Road. This item can be tabled, but it needed to be on the agenda as the first order of business. Any other changes to the agenda?
Under your, you've got 634 Grassy Brook Road under 6A.
Oh, it should be 624 under, thank you, 624 Grassy Brook Road.
Good job.
Thanks, Glenn.
So, address again,
624
624.
Grassy Brook Road. Any other changes to the agenda?
Can we discuss 7B even though we don't have Samara's?
Tomorrow's coming,
Oh, good, excellent.
yes.
Sounds good. Now
We have to.
yeah, we have to.
We have to vote on. We have to vote on our
Okay.
warning by the end of the night.
Yeah, so I already get the stuff.
One way or another, we need to know.
Okay, so other than adding an item to the agenda, which would be considered 6B after executive session, we'll move on to item number 3, scheduled members of the public. And I'd like to welcome our Brookline representative to Rescue Aid, Jorda. Say your last name again?
Dana.
Dano, and I would spell D, for the record, D-A-I-G-N-E-A-U-L-T.
Yes.
Got it right.
Welcome, Jorda. Thank you. I saw Wayne today, so he said that there was a meeting last night that everybody was at, and so you're really up to date. I'd love to hear a little bit about Rescue this year.
Sure. So Rescue had an increase. Last year they had 5,300 calls. This year they've already had over 6,200 calls. We had 11 calls to Brookline last year. The increase has been interfacility transfers and mental health. That seems to be the ones, yeah. They have 9 new employees recently in the last couple weeks. They have over 80 employees overall, some are part-time, some are full-time. Their vehicles are all up to date right now. They have put on about 150,000 miles on each vehicle every year, which is amazing. So they have a plan for maintenance and replacement. They do have a program, a subscription program for people within the catchment. There's 2 different fee schedules. One is with insurances at $60 a year, and that's from July 1st to June 30th. And then if you don't have insurance, it's $100 a year. And what that does is it covers, if you were to call the ambulance, it would cover the expense of that. So there would be no other out-of-pocket expenses for you. And we often, nobody ever plans on having an emergency, but when you do need to call them, it can be quite expensive.
Jordan, what could you tell me about that subscription plan? I'd like to get more people involved in it or know of it. I know I've read it in the Rescue newsletter, but how do we get that information out?
Well, I know that they send they send notifications out when it's time to renew or to purchase it. And that's in July.
But they don't do that to every single mailing address.
I'm not sure, I'll have to check with Drew, I'm not sure
I think it's possible that because I know that I have gotten one the last couple of years and didn't previously. I leave room for the possibility that they have added to their mailing list people who've bought tickets in their raffles and stuff like that, but I'm not sure if they do beyond that.
And I don't know the answer.
I was going to say that.
It is a good thing, though. I mean, I know when he's come before, has noted it to us, and so has Gary Livornia. That
I mean, one call can be over $600. And depending on
Yeah.
if they need to do advanced stuff to you, that can certainly, give medications you supply, that all increases the cost of
I might
things.
recommend that on occasion you write a little news blurb to Julie Lavordna, who does the listserv, julielavordna@gmail.com. And she has a listserv here in Brookline, and you can shoot out a message every couple of months reminding people that there is that service or anything that, and, you know, people see that and react to it pretty well. I'd like to see the subscription rate go up.
Okay, you have to do that. It is a nonprofit and do some fundraising. I don't know what else would you like to know?
Well, I was thinking of, besides the subscription rate, and I know I was reading about how much mileage you put on and running time and idling time that ambulances get. Do you have enough equipment? Are you still trying to turn over on the equipment and all that?
So they are, what they do is they take some of the ambulances and re-chassis them, and so that they can prolong their life. They're gonna have to purchase a new one in the fall, and let's see, they're gonna look for cheaper kind of ambulances that are more disposable than what we have now, because they're very expensive. And they're thinking about maybe going the European model, although we do have some bariatric people within our catchment, and those will not able to manage those. So they just purchased some new motorized stretchers to reduce workers' comp injuries. But they do have a weight limit, and so there are some patients that wouldn't be able to fit on those.
Right.
And the closest bariatric ambulance is University of Vermont, which is pretty far away.
Yes.
So they have to be, like, you know, they haven't come into any problem yet, but if in the future, if something happens, they'd have to be creative on how they would get a person to the hospital.
Okay. Anybody have any comments that they'd like to share with Jorda? I just think that rescue does a terrific job. I know they do their ice rescues, they were doing that last week, and I just, if we could keep between Newbrook and rescue, we do all right in the community here. But if there's anything that we can do or help with promoting the service, please let us know.
Okay,
Thank you so much for coming.
thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
see
you.
later,
Thanks.
Jorda.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, at this time, we move on to item 3B. I'm assuming you're Andy.
I am.
Andy Sheere is a forester,
Yes.
and we invited you to come along to talk to us a little bit about logging. Boy, this week I've been trying to read everything the state has on the logging and that, and there's quite a bit of information out there. You wanted to summarize what a forester does?
Sure. There are different kinds of foresters, state foresters, industrial foresters. I happen to be a consulting forester, so we work for private landowners. We work closely with the current use program and state foresters, but we are working as the agent for the particular landowner that we work for. And so my job generally revolves around the formulation of a 10-year management plan and then the implementation of that plan as far as getting a job set up, and then we usually contract with a logger to actually do the work. And that's what's happening up on the Ward's property for the last number of years now.
Yeah, so that's been an issue, the Ward's property. How long is this logging operation going to last? I think it's over, it was not managed for many decades, so
Right.
you're catching up,
Right.
correct?
Right. And I've been the Ward's forester since about the mid-2000s, maybe 2003, 2004. Their land has been in current use since 1992, as far as I can tell. So it's had a long period of management. And in the last several years, as a lot of you probably know, the Wards purchased a couple of the abutting properties, which came to them in various states of previous management. Essentially, some of the challenges that I've faced being their forester for a long time has been the The idea that the access was very poor there, it's a big forested block, but not a lot of good access roads within the property. I'm not talking about town roads at this point. And the quality of trees out there was not very good because over the last 3/4 of a century, we saw a lot of hunting and pecking where, for example, in the 1980s when red oak prices were very high, you can tell that they went in and cut just the oak. And so what happens over the long term is you're left with a lot of very poor quality products, and that's in a state where it's not likely to change because trees live a long time. And so you can have a state of forest that's just not productive for timber harvesting or other things that people value, like diverse wildlife habitats and recreation and so forth. So with the advent of mechanization, this is equipment that instead of a man and a chainsaw, now you're talking bigger machines that can handle more wood more quickly, and that's opened doors to do what I think of as being very good management by going into these places and really weeding out the poor quality stuff, making room for trees to grow. And that's where we found ourselves in about 2014 with the wards. We just found an inroad to improving some of their access, getting to some of the parts of the property that hadn't been gotten to in many decades, and start to do more active management. In addition to current use, the property is also conserved with the Vermont Land Trust, so we're being held beholden to state regulations and also Vermont Land Trust regulations. And so the harvesting we do has been approved by the state and approved by Vermont Land Trust. Now, getting back to what I think is some of the concerns, we've had this period between 2014 and now where we've been pretty active. And they have almost 500 acres, most of it's forested, and we've been going through a lot of these areas that were either, I'm not going to use the word mistreated because people were doing their best at the time, but the end result being that there was many acres in this degraded condition. So the goal of what we're doing in there is kind of hitting the restart button in a sense, where we're going into certain areas, we're making assessments on what kind of soils we have, are they, what kind of trees are they growing, are we looking at trees that could be better if we started over. So we're managing with timber values in mind, but we're also very much looking at expanding recreational trails for the wards, and it's going to diversify the wildlife habitats because we're starting to get more of a staggering of age classes of trees, which is really important for appealing to a lot of different kinds of wildlife. And there's been, like most logging, there's periods where the production of the people working there is very high, and periods, since this fall, when we've had a rainy stretch, we've logged very little since September. There's just been drips and drabs. So there's periods of very high activity and periods where the weather, you back off on things and so forth. And it's an ongoing process, but I think this period of really active management, we're probably looking at another couple of years before we get this first round done, and then we're looking at new trees or just fine-tuning other areas. So, harvesting is, per the current use program, will happen in the future, but this sort of elevated harvest activity is, we're looking at a couple of years.
Okay, 2 questions. My first one, do you replant trees?
No, not generally. In the Northeast, we normally rely on natural regeneration. We do have requirements from the state, if that's not coming along at a certain pace, the new trees naturally that sometimes you consider planting, but most people decide not to plant, it's expensive and it's a very long-term investment, so.
And my other question is your only access Whitney Hill Road? How do you get into
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
This is the main concern. We were looking at developing a policy under our ordinance that might be retroactive, and we'd let you know if we get it adopted. Because we're concerned about the wear and tear on the ditches and the culverts and the roads and driveway access and the neighbors. And I guess, well, Mark Bills is our, I guess you're a tree warden too, right?
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
Mark.
We talk about considerate logging and conscientious work and just being aware of the changing conditions. And I guess in our policy or ordinance, we really can't look at changing, because it would be more of a planning commission thing, the time that you log, because early in the morning in the sun weather, the ground is firmer for you to use. And then as the day goes on and it softens up, you would have to stop doing that.
Right.
Who decides that?
The logger or myself or a combination thereof. I think most of the time, especially when you think about the end of the winter coming into mud season, we try to have good communication with the town road foremans where it's appropriate, and in cases where maybe the roads are posted, but if we assure them that we're coming in, under frozen conditions before the sun comes out, then sometimes they'll let us get the remainder of the job trucked. But that's I don't know if you're aware, the state just recently passed a forestry law, Vermont S101, and it talks about some of these things about noise generation, traffic, and where it pertains to negative impact to town roads. I would just say right up front that we're very much here, we're very much standing behind what we do, and we have full intention of making sure that road is in good or better condition than when we found it. I think what I've noticed is that the greatest impact that I can think of is up at the top of the hill where that red camp is. And that's always been a stretch of town road that's not been in very good condition, but I think it needs some more ditching and maybe some gravel. So I think, in terms of mitigating road impacts, we certainly are aware of the use we're putting on it and want to make sure we're not negatively impacting town roads.
Guy, gives.
I have a couple of questions I'd like to address in regards to the roads and so forth. We have a permitting process here in town that requires truckers to file for an overweight permit, and I have seen no permits issued to any of the truckers up there. That's one of my concerns, and with that permit comes an insurance which shows that they have $1 million worth of insurance and that any aggravation created on the roads would be taken care of. So those are two things that I haven't seen there.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna, just pick on this one particular instance because it seems to be a thorn in the side with a couple of our neighbors who at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning are having trucks go up and down, Jake brakes, going on, and you know what Jake brakes are, I do. And I'm just wondering, is there any way, now you, by your own admission, say that this could be a 4, 5, 6 year program.
Well, it's ongoing, it's not gonna stop.
Okay, so basically what I'm interested in, how do we work with the neighbors who live alongside that road? Because it's a high residential area in that particular part of town. So do you start at a certain time? Because 6 o'clock to me would seem to be early enough to start, but there's been earlier starts than that. I've heard that Jake brakes, I live on Grassy Brook Road, inside, and I can hear the Jake brakes at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just curious of how we can minimize that effect and what can be done, because you have rights and so do the people who own property and pay taxes have rights.
Right.
So I'm just trying to get a happy medium in there and how we can address these concerns, because as the town clerk, I field these phone calls and I'm not sure how to answer them.
Sure. Well, let's deal with the question of permits first off, and I'll just say that I will follow up on that. The way we structure our contracts, so you understand that I'm a forester, I'm working as the agent for a landowner. When it comes time for a timber sale, I negotiate a contract that's between the logger and the landowner, and I'm overseeing that contract. And within that contract are paragraphs that state that the logger is responsible for trucking and all associated licenses and permits. And, you know, most towns have overweight permits and they all enforce them at different levels, but certainly if there's no permits on file, I'll follow up and see what I can do that and make sure that we get that right. In terms of time of day, you know, again, I think a lot of the reason why things happen as early as they do is because you need a firm road surface, and things like Jake breaks on a place like Whitney Hill are just essential. So
Yep, I understand.
I think you know, and again, I'm here on behalf of the wards, but I don't necessarily represent all their views. I think I've talked with Barclay and John. I know they want to cooperate, and I'm here to help them do that. Early noise, though, it's you know, the reality is that these truckers come from all over the state and Canada, and scheduling them, you're getting them along with lots of other jobs they're doing. So for you to put a time restriction, say you can't show up earlier than this in the morning and you can't show up later than this at night, puts a real strain on the profitability of the job.
Okay, and having said that, the bottom line is that these are the taxpayers of the town
Right.
that are complaining. And I find that hard to understand that you can't tell people not to start before 6 o'clock. Because if a town has an ordinance or anything else, if we have to, I mean, they'll put police up there and just say, all right, you're in violation of our ordinance. I mean, there's gotta be some sort of happy medium, because starting at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, people have little children and so forth on that particular road. It's a real annoying factor.
I understand, but I, you know, also understand that this is our business and these people live in a rural place where logging is a big part of Brookline and Athens and the Townsend. Logging is a big part of it. And, you know, just like the right to farm laws, you know, there are cases where, you know, we're talking a few trucks a week. We're not talking about a CNS factory in Brattleboro. This is log trucks that come down, you know, at different times of day, and you know, I think the truck drivers have to be careful of how they drive and drive safe. But you know, really to put a confine on, you know, I guess there's no good way for us to curtail when those trucks come.
Okay.
Bruce, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what you just said. You said there's just a couple of trucks a week?
It varies. It varies from, you know, we haven't had trucks move out of there in several weeks. And then there'll be periods where there's, you know, many trucks. So I think when you look at the activity we've had since 2014, again, it's not a steady state of a heavy volume of trucks. We're very much going through periods of cold weather where we can operate, dry weather where we can operate, and you're gonna see the elevated truck traffic there. But then, you know, again, like I said, we've had very little activity on that property since last September. So, you know, there hasn't been the trucks there.
I do believe there's more than one logging activity going on in Brookline,
Other than-
not
not the
just the
wards.
wards. You had mentioned where the trucks come from, anywhere all over the country in Canada and such. Is there any, one of the concerns was identifying the trucks that are maybe driving in a hazardous or reckless fashion. They're not labeled, there's no John Joe's logging company on the door to catch up with or to identify them by. Is there any remedy for that?
Any truck driver in Vermont has to have that information on their truck. And if they're, you know, if they're coming off the hill and they don't, then, you know, that is something we can address and pursue. And if there are truck drivers that are not driving courteously, then we can absolutely pursue that.
Well, yeah, that was the concern, that we couldn't identify which, you know, who owned that truck, who was the logger
Yeah.
moving the material that.
Well, the avenue to that is for me to talk with the logger, because right now I don't even know what truckers he's using. That's part of his job, but that's something I can find out.
And who is the logger? What's the name of the company?
Chapin, it's Advanced Timber Harvesting LLC, I believe. He's an excellent logger. I've worked with him for a long time. He's a one-person operation. He gets a lot of work done and he's very reliable.
He works by himself?
Yeah, believe it or not, yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, I know logging has come up. I was going through the agenda last month, all the agendas for the year, and I think logging came up on almost every single agenda for a mention here or there, whether it be a complaint or a concern or something that we're learning. Mark, maybe do you have anything you'd like to add or tell us a little bit more about suggestions or concerns? or-
Yeah, well, as a road supervisor, it's my job to make sure the roads are kept in a manageable shape so that all safety, fire, rescues can get through. And, we haven't had any issues since the logging's gone on. And so I know that wards at the end of the road, dead end road, and there's really not a lot of traffic up there, but the only one who frequents would be the snowplow people. And the way the landing was set up, they were kind of using the road as a landing to load the trucks. And that's fine because of lack of traffic. And along towards spring, we had one, weather-related issue where the road kind of slushed up mud and was too tight to get a plow truck through. So I didn't know, are you still gonna be forwarding logs to the camp?
We may, I don't really anticipate that at this point, but obviously we've got to do something to remedy that, and that's an area that, we haven't even, we're just at a point now where we're gonna do our final cleanup of that part of the property, so, I agree completely in that section that we really need to
Yeah,
get
I
that
mean,
back in shape.
It hasn't really harmed anybody, it's just, there was no communication as it was being set up for a landing. And either way, if you have to drive up the hill and back in, it's still gonna be kind of an area. And I've held back on the maintenance, just knowing that it's a log job. I wasn't sure how long you were gonna continue to, if it's a consistent thing or if it's gonna be periodically. So that was just one concern, to make sure that, the road stays up to par, up through there. And I occasionally would go up through and scrape it, and I did clean some culverts and ditches in the fall. And, I don't want the wards to think I'm neglecting their section of the road.
I've never gotten that impression.
But I also would like to work with whoever to, I know that logging is a tough thing, weather related, and I log too, so I'm just curious if maybe the landing could be set up so.
I think there's even opportunities there to make, that landing area can be a good turnaround for the trucks at this point. So I think when we're done there, hopefully it might help out the guys with the plows having to turn around.
Yeah, definitely. I know over the years that there used to be huge stumps right there, and you couldn't turn around a fire truck or a oil truck that was delivering fuel. So it has gotten improved over time, and I just would like to make sure that there's communication with the logger and the town. I know the equipment can't be trucked up there at times because there's no real good place to turn around a equipment trailer, and they have to travel the road. And it's just consideration to look at the weather, maybe talk to the road guy, and make sure erosion happens 15 minutes. So and the big thing is, I know come springtime you got to get all your logs out. There was one particular trucker who came in and he came during the night, but it hadn't really frozen. left some pretty good ruts down out there. And again, it's up at the end of the road and, but, yeah, just the consideration, so that we can keep the road, up to par for the Ward family
And everybody else, I agree.
so, yeah, I just, and I do realize too, like you said, of all that property, there's really no other great, access out of there.
And
so.
we have, I mean, for what it's worth, we, in the planning of all this, we looked at other accesses, and going out the Maggie Ladd Road to Townsend is even longer and harder, and then going up over the, you know, it's a very hard to get to part of the, you know, the area.
Right, yeah. But yeah, so I guess, the big thing that I think we were having this meeting for, we've had, people come in, concerned over the trucks, the loudness of the trucks and, the speed. And
Yes.
Well, the speed I can do something about, the heavyweight permits I can definitely do something about, and repairing the road I can do something
And
about.
labeling the
But
trucks.
the general noise and the time of day, I have really no control over that, to be frank. And I would encourage you as a town, because I know towns wrestle with this, that, you know, I guess I just unashamedly promote the industry and feel that, you know, the forest industries are one of Vermont's largest industries, the third largest industry in the state, and a lot of people are in there living from this, and I think, you know, I can appreciate getting woken up by loud trucks. I get the same thing around my place, so I can't say I'm surprised that people don't like that, but on the other hand, the wards are big taxpayers in the town, and they have taken great care of their land for, we're going into the third generation pretty soon here, so I would hope that landowners would put that in perspective, that they've had pretty much the last 25 years of almost zero, and now we're elevating that, but that's gonna settle down again too. I think hopefully that is part of the consideration, that, you know, we're not, even if we wanted to, that property wouldn't sustain the level of harvesting that we're currently doing, so. You know, they don't, they allow hunting, they allow, you know, non-motorized recreation. You know, they're welcome, you know, a lot of people in the community use that land to walk and hike on, so I think it goes both ways with the noise.
Okay. Anything else, Select Board? Andy, thank you so much for coming in and explaining that. I appreciate your knowledge and sharing what's going on up at the Ward's property. And if you could tidy up a couple of those loose ends for us, I'm sure some of the residents that have been coming in will watch the
Well,
video.
I'm gonna leave a business card, but I would also really like to thank you folks for inviting me. I think there's many times where I don't get the chance to explain what we're doing and the rationale behind it to somebody who isn't familiar with logging. It's a huge disturbance, there's a lot of big equipment, and you know, sometimes, not always, but sometimes if I can explain the bigger picture of why we're doing it and how long it's gonna last, that helps.
So
But,
how long did you say it was gonna last?
well, I guess this is the question, because, you know, without getting into a whole new topic, part of the reason it's gone on this long as it is we've had very changeable weather these last few years. We haven't had winters that have been consistently cold, and we have had wet summers. So the windows of opportunity to get the work done we're trying to do have been pretty few and far between. So all else being equal, you know, things would move along fairly quick. And I guess I'd have to think about it a little more concertedly to come up with a more accurate, but just shooting from the hip, so to speak, you know, a couple of years and we should be done with the round of major work. And, you know, I certainly too, if it would help to keep in touch with you, Mark, about, you know, I get advance from the logger, like, okay, we're hitting it, the weather's good, things are active, but also the logger might just say, gosh, you know, like right now the logger is on a completely different job in a different part of the state because he can't work here. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it would be helpful for you folks to get a heads up, like, we're looking at a period of, low activity, or hey, we're coming into a time when we might be ramping it up, I don't know.
Because I saw a big truck go down today, down the road today, so I don't know if it was from Wards or from some other source.
No, there's, this time of year, there's a lot of logging going on in the area, and, this Brookline Athens Road is, if you're doing any work in the Grassy Brook Valley, that's the road you have to use, whether it's on the Ward's property or other properties, but, yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much.
So, yeah, again, thanks for inviting me
Thank
down, and, I will give you, my card so that, I'd rather hear about it if you keep getting,
Complaints?
people keep on,
Just so they can understand, so they can
concerns,
talk
then-
to you. You know what, we may have a resident, if you wouldn't mind, I might share your phone number with a
Yeah,
resident
and
who's been actively
Anybody
concerned.
in general, because I'd much rather be given a chance to work with people and
All right,
try to reach some agreement than have people.
all right, I'll make a copy for Brian and Arizona. All right, excellent. And
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for your questions. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming. Where do you live?
I live in Chester,
Okay.
so.
You must know Ralph Hollerman.
I do, yeah, he's a colleague of mine, sure, yeah.
Works for my family.
Oh, good enough. And who's your?
Down in Whitingham, Sage Farm.
Okay, excellent, yeah. Fantastic. All right, well, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yep, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to unscheduled members of the public. We have none. And then approving the minutes from January 2nd, 2019. So we'll just go page by page. There are 5 pages. On page 1 of 5, I noticed under C, where it says discuss wheeled excavator, we're going to approve a loan, LOAN versus LONE. Okay, that's the only thing I saw.
The loan.
The loan.
Under
I
the,
was sick,
yeah.
so I was not here.
Oh, and Chris
Yeah, I saw
Webb was
yours,
not
sir.
present.
I was here in spirit.
What a good guy.
Yeah.
Just X you right out of that list.
There was some word spelling
David?
someplace.
Under B, the first sentence, Ms. Wick's prior suggestion to wait on, there's just a duplicate on.
On,
And there's another word.
And then, under C, the
Well,
third
not that one. Yeah, I didn't
paragraph,
see that.
where it says that 39,000 is budgeted for contract services, which will no longer be needed. I think it's important to say some of which will no longer be needed. Because this wouldn't eliminate all of the 39,000 in contract services, it's just a portion of it.
yeah. Okay, anything else on page 1? Go to page 2 or 5, any changes, corrections? I saw none. Page 3 or 5? I saw none. Oh, no, I mean, it was a mistake. Page-
Sorry, on page 3, the only thing I'll say is under A, the second paragraph, where it says Mr. Mello reported, the second line about construction that it was built in 1989. I think it should say that it was renovated in 1989. Because it wasn't actually built in 1989.
The back
The
addition
school
was
was
built.
not.
Construction areas.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it was a renovation in 19, so I think we should say renovation, not because
Renovation and
everyone
addition.
thinks that whole structure was built in
Renovation
1989.
and addition,
It was renovated and added to.
both.
Yeah, I would argue that renovated covers
Okay.
either, but, and then there's also, it refers to the addition later, so that was my more concern, was just not making it sound like the building.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah.
All right, anything else on page 3? Go to page 4 or 5?
Yeah, actually, the very first word of the
Not?
page, not, should be removed.
Page 4?
On page 4, yeah.
5.
Talking about the
Would
trash dumping,
impact this.
removing the bins probably would not impact this. It should probably,
Say, would impact
would
this.
probably impact it.
So remove the word not.
So just remove the word not.
Okay. Anything else on page 4? Page 5 of 5?
Nope. I move that we approve the minutes from January 2nd as amended.
Seconding?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor in approving the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Chris will abstain. Okay. All right, we're gonna move next into item number 6, which is an executive session. I'm gonna ask our select board members, our town agent, and Tina Bills to remain, and should be about 10 to 15 minutes is what's scheduled at this time.
I need to make a public statement
Oh, yes, Chris?
related to this. So, just per the conflict of interest policy, the part of this issue early on, I guess, when we first learned about the issue, involved Timson Hill Preschool approaching the town regarding the
That
building.
email, great.
And my wife, Sarah Webb, is on that board. So even though that's probably not gonna come up per se in this instance, I wanted to just note that she's on the board there, so that could be a perceived conflict of interest, but at the same time, according to Article 5 in the policy, I can state, and I do believe, that I can make fair, objective, just, and in the interest of the town decisions. So if the board wants me to recuse myself, that's up to you to ask, but I feel I can take part.
I also agree, I think
Yeah.
that you certainly could be able to take part. Anybody have an objection to Chris remaining?
Yes, because
If
we
not,
unanimous.
all right, thank you, Chris, for that.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to enter into executive session. It was an exciting executive session. We are now out of executive session.
Oh, no.
It
Here comes the
is
traitor.
7:50.
I'm just here briefly.
Thanks for this.
You got
Form whatever.
7:57. And at this point, we will move on to, nothing was decided in executive session. At this point, we're going to move to Article 6B on the agenda, which is how the select board write a letter of commitment regarding the leases at Sunny Lane, at 624 Grassy Brook Road, currently known as Sunny Lane Daycare. Do I have
634 or 24?
624.
624? This has
620.
been corrected
typo
earlier,
in
it's a
the-
typo, we got that
Okay.
before.
I make a motion that we extend a letter of intent to continue the lease and the new lease as discussed at 624 Grassy Brook Road.
Okay.
The second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to do so. Any discussion?
We did nothing.
The only thing I would like to add is that the redesigning and rewriting and some, we'll have to talk and put it on an agenda item at the next meeting to the transitional lease where you're coming and she's going, or you're going and she's coming, the Susie's Little Peanuts takeover. So we'll have to work on that a little bit before the next meeting, but the next select board meeting on February 2nd. February 6th.
Can you clarify that for me, like, what do you mean?
Well, tomorrow I can get to you a letter
Okay,
of commitment,
okay.
okay?
Yeah.
But the actual retyped
Right,
lease
right, yes.
and the,
We need the new names.
Changing names.
changing the names and the sort of a document that will allow you and Susie's Little Peanuts
To
to
work together.
transition for the next 4.5 months.
Okay,
That's what we're agreeing on now together.
okay, great,
Okay.
thank
In other
you.
words, Dot's gonna work with you on the wording and that has to be put onto the next select board
Agenda,
meeting
the
for
official
voting.
stuff.
Okay,
This is like
Move
our
forward.
letter of intent.
okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of offering the letter of intent regarding 624 Grassy Brook Road's lease, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention?
I did a unrelated question to Tina. You said you had Olivia, who are the other, you said 3 people are staying?
Michelle's saying,
The cook,
Natalia's saying,
okay. I'm just curious.
Let her finish the motion.
Well, okay, just-
We did.
Oh, okay.
Motion?
Yeah.
It all passed.
Okay.
Okay.
and then actually, one of the teachers that's here now that's leaving is gonna be probably part-time, like 1 or 2 days every week. So, and then I have a sub, 1 or 2 subs that will still continue.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, this was a very, very busy week, and it was a lot of time and effort put forth by a lot of people, so I'm glad we were able to try to do a seamless transition and support the childhood care in
Thank you.
Brookline.
I really
Okay.
appreciate it, thank you
Thanks,
everyone.
Gina.
Well, your
Thank you for
business is really
your
important.
time, and thank you for listening and being willing to help.
Well, thank you for working to try to figure out a
Solving
solution
your own
that'll
problem,
be good
solving
for
the
the parents. Yeah.
Yeah, because it would have been lousy
Girls?
if they can attack places.
Yeah, special mom there.
All right, are you girls going to bed? I am.
I mean,
I am too.
all right, thank you very
You
much.
get to go to.
Good night.
I like your hat. I like your hat.
Bye.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Do you want this door open or shut? You can leave it open.
Saved by the bell.
That's so funny.
Somebody has to go in.
Okay.
In a meeting.
We're gonna move on then to items, number 7, the 2019-2020 budget discussion. Changing, okay, the first item here is, do we need to change any line items? You know, I'm a little concerned about a couple of things, and, I guess this executive session solved one, and that would be the care and cost of maintaining the Sunny Lane daycare building if it were vacant, because I was gonna ask to put it as an appropriations later on, but are there any other line items that you all need to?
Talk about the town book.
Well, I think
the
we're
budget.
looking at I think we're talking about the actual budget.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
your budget.
Right. No, don't worry.
Guy, do you have to, I know you did a flat budget for the highway, but you don't see any need for any changes? or-
No, I think, I reviewed it, I looked at it a number of times. I think we're in good shape. Everything is pretty much where it should be. And unless there's some sort of catastrophic event, which who the hell knows, but I think we're in good shape with the money that we've appropriated. Mark, do you see anything that you would like to touch base on?
No, I don't believe that there's anything that.
And me,
I have-
send up copies, and I have some.
Basically, we have the same appropriations that we had last year. We bumped up I don't know if that the summer thing, $39,000. That's still the same. Was it 37 last year or 39 last year also?
I think it was flat, everything is identical to last
Okay.
year's budget.
All right.
All right,
This is a practical question, given Article 13 about wishing to continue funding recycling as a town service and the fact that we have money in the proposed budget. If we approve a budget in Article 7, and then the town doesn't want to
Oh, right.
continue funding, okay, doesn't want to continue funding recycling.
then after,
Should we discuss that before we approve a town budget?
but then after, you can amend the town, you can amend at the meeting.
Okay.
If something is not in the budget, but there's an article for it,
Yeah.
after the vote happens, then we set the tax rate and we amend the budget. And the same thing, if it's already in the budget and it's pulled out of the budget, then we would amend that amount to a lesser.
I
Correct?
believe that's correct. You have to, go through a whole separate vote to amend, to remove the funds appropriated in the budget. And I can probably email somebody at the LCT and get technical guidance on that.
Because I guess our question is, we're going to take a look at the next item when we're talking about changing line items. Have we really hung a number on the recycling? How do we want to
I think we're getting,
ahead of ourselves?
I think we should focus on, are we changing any existing
Because that's an
budgeted
article.
line items?
That's
what
an
we're
article
talking about.
that should be going.
Right, and that's
Okay.
something we can discuss
Right.
when we discuss the wording of those articles.
Right.
I guess we're just,
I guess
are we just going to go?
the problem is that we can't say to people, I mean, I guess we could warn an article in the case of, we budgeted $18,000 next year for recycling. But the question essentially that we're going to ask the voters is somewhat ethereal as far as where does it end?
Yeah, we talked about that.
So,
So you mean that's a future question? It wasn't really.
well, it's a somewhat non-binding, generalized question to have a discussion about.
You got a point.
Because the reality is, I don't think we can say to the voters, are you willing to continue recycling up to $18,000?
No, but they can put a limit.
Unless we're prepared to stop recycling in the middle of the year.
Yeah, they can put a limit on it.
Well, they can, but do we really, is that really an effective
I don't-
use
yeah,
of
that's not how
town meeting
best it's-
discussion?
Well, they
To
got,
decide to pick a number?
no, it's not.
I mean,
But they
that's-
should decide whether they want the recycling or not, and that, like I said at the previous meeting, Dave, that they have to understand that the select board has no control over those costs. Once they
I
understand
think
that,
the town knows that.
no, they don't know it, how would they know it, Gwen?
I guess I'd like to
Discussed
feel
it
that's
last year.
something that is,
They don't
can be
read
part
that.
of the discussion.
Okay.
They don't read that.
But that's just my opinion.
What's that?
I mean, people are free to reword the article however they want to reword it. I mean, I personally think we need to pick a somewhat realistic number, which I think we think 18,000 is somewhat realistic, and budget for that and prepare that that is the budgeted amount. But yes, if we get to a discussion of recycling and we word the article so that it is a yes or no, and they end up voting no, then we go through the process of figuring out what we do with that $18,000 that we budgeted.
Well, then it gets taken out of the
Of the budget.
budget and
Plus taxes.
never gets part of the municipal tax. And then
Correct.
we don't collect that money.
Or when you get to the $18,000, when you see that if you're in the 10th month and you're at $19,000, you have an ability to stop the recycling.
Well, no, we're talking about the scenario where we've put this article about recycling on and it gets voted down.
Right.
The
Oh,
answer
okay,
is
so
no. We
you
don't
wanna
want
take it
continue
out of
recycling.
the,
Then we've essentially got to rework the budgeted.
So you wanna do a separate article for that?
You'd have to, because you warned the total amount.
Yeah.
That changes.
And
We're-
then you
we're
would have to
talking
do an amendment to,
The total budget tomorrow, is that what you're saying?
it's part of the ongoing operating budget.
Right.
It's gonna be warned in part of the lump sum, which as of right now is
$142.
$301,499.81. If you look on your first page, the first square. That's town office operations and highway operations. Historically, we've always warned them this a lump sum.
Right.
Okay? So, I'm not sure, but I think the mechanics would be, if recycling was voted down, we would then have to amend that
Total.
total.
Or take that 18 out of the general fund budget
I know, but
and warn it separately.
Or take the 18,000,
And do a separate article?
do a separate article.
Do a separate article for that
Or
amount.
make the recycling, take it out of normal operations
That's
and
right.
warn it as a separate article. Those are your choices.
Because that's how we started that, with the
Yes,
$11,000.
$11,000.
Right.
So is that what we should do, is take it out of the budget and warn it as a separate article?
Maybe, I mean, we were planning on warning
Or warn
this
it.
or something
David,
to have a
you
discussion about
It
it.
kind of cuts to the chase, in a way.
Right, I guess my point is though,
No,
I don't
yes.
think we can, well, I don't know, maybe, yeah.
It's easy enough to take the 18,000 out of the total operating costs and then warn it as a separate article. However, there's a whole different kettle of fish.
Right.
It's
What's
just,
everybody thinking? I think that's what we should do, I think we should. do
Or
a separate article.
you
The
guys
difference
decide
is
what you want.
$6,000 from what we were budgeting, or no, the difference is, last year we budgeted 12,000,
Mhm.
and to
So
$6,000.
it's an increase of $6,000,
Right.
that's correct.
But it's bringing the focus to home about the discussion of the increase in that budget and the fact that we have no control over it. And don't loan it, want to completely get rid of it. So who else doesn't want to feel like that? Is it the majority of the voters? We're gonna find out.
And so then we're gonna be at the point where, so if we put it as 18,000, the only thing I'll say, right now, when we get to 18,500 in April, we have the flexibility to be able to deal with it because we probably have a surplus somewhere that we could move around with, like we, are undoubtedly probably gonna have to do at the end of this fiscal year, maybe, if it goes over 12,000. If we warned it at 18, that's cool. We just all have to realize that when we therefore get to 18, we pull those bins and it's over.
That's it, it's over.
Even if it's 2 weeks before the end of the fiscal
Right,
year.
but they have to understand. I think we should bring that, I focus on it. Go ahead, Chris.
Chris?
Last year was my first town meeting. It went really smoothly when we voted on these things. Is there a way where people would go like line by line and be like, oh, what's
They don't
this
see the
here?
full, they don't see
They don't
line
see
by
the full-
line.
Okay.
Yeah, they do, it's in the town
They
report.
see the whole
Yeah.
report, but they can't vote line by line.
I see.
Line by line, that's what I meant.
People can
They
see it.
can ask people, I believe they can ask you to amend the amount.
Sure they
but
can.
I don't-
Yes, they can amend them.
Yeah,
So this could come up during that point then? If you-
Except that we're, if you wanted to warn the do we continue recycling before the normal
budget.
operations, that would be
We've got the data.
logistically
yeah.
logistically easier, because then you wouldn't have to backtrack to the article and amend it.
Right.
I like the idea of, sorry, and I think I'm backtracking from what I was saying before. I like the idea of rewording this article to include the 18,000, pulling the 18 out of the operations number.
Okay.
And this
Adjusting
way
that
they can
and
decide
having
whether they
this
want
be
to do it or
Do a
not.
separate article?
Do a separate
Yeah.
article.
So, sorry, these guys can see, and I have copies for you guys. I threw together it's not complete, but it's largely complete draft of the warning with the numbers that we had. Numbers are gonna have to change now,
Yeah,
and the
I
wording
had-
of some things is
I
gonna
have
change,
no
but it's
idea
a draft.
whether the auditors came in and saw all the answers to their questions or not, because they haven't contacted me. I don't know what their schedule is, and I was out of town, so I didn't call Bobby.
So,
So,
as
do
far as
other
this
people
goes,
agree with that?
I would like to, yeah, I think that, how do you,
Seems
I would
like,
say to pull the 18 out of the municipal budget and put it in Article 13 and spell out the amount that we're going to budget for recycling, 18,000.
So this would be.
Or-
They can choose at that point,
Because we have to
Not to do anything.
approve the wording of this.
Right.
Yeah,
So, given the rise in cost, no, we don't have to say given
Let's-
the rise in cost.
That
I would
would-
say.
well, we're gonna
Just a
do
moment.
that in order.
We're not doing
now.
that.
Okay, go ahead. You want, Dan,
Let's-
why don't you run through this?
Well, no,
because
I'm
we put
just-
this together, and we have a couple of other,
Well, no, we're on the agenda
Agenda,
still,
yeah.
and you wanted to go through line item, if there were line
So that was the only
items,
question I had on
That-
that.
and I don't,
that
Other than
that
that,
makes the
or-
article.
So can I confirm, have you all
point
decided
of
to
being
change the 18,000, to remove it, take it out of the budget,
Yep.
and put it as a special article?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
okay.
So at that point, it can be amended if they choose, they can remove it, they can change the amount, and it still goes in the budget later.
Cleaner.
What's
It's
that?
cleaner.
It's cleaner, exactly, and it's easier, more concise.
Okay, very good.
All right, so next.
Any other line items? Do you think that we need to put a line item in just in case all of this tenancy falls flat? Do we-
What?
Do you think we need to put in a line item to cover the costs of mothballing the building in case this plan of tenancy falls flat?
That's a sense of, I'm not gonna touch it.
Okay,
I don't,
The only thing you would have to do there basically is put minimum heat.
And drain the water.
Oh, just a moment, Joe.
let's not get into
let's not get
that.
into what we have.
Time out, Doc, you really brought up a freaking,
Wait, I have to get my hat on, hold on,
wait.
go ahead.
Can I ask one more, there was one item in the budget that was estimated, the WRC dues.
Yeah,
Did anybody, Guy, have you?
No, I have not been able to get a hold of Chris Campy.
Okay, so,
I will call again tomorrow,
I'll try, I'll see.
right there, and I'll call him again.
Now, can I answer Doc's
If you
statement?
get an answer, let me know, otherwise
I
I'll
will.
call Craig.
I will.
What?
Wow, praise the Lord. In answer to what you're saying, Gwen, I've already talked to Scott Bovat about it. In anticipation if we were gonna close the building
Yeah.
because of 2 weeks ago. I'd already spoken to him about it.
Yeah.
And he recommends a number of different things, one of which, keeping the building constantly 50 degrees, because like he agreed with me, which I brought up, is you don't want any mold in the building. So we don't wanna go
I
backwards.
think right now that this doesn't need to be discussed until
Well,
it comes up.
Yes, but
I
Doc
just
brought
wanna
it up.
know if this falls on its face, do we need to budget money
Exactly.
just in case?
And we need to know a number. And we're looking at
Should we
2003.
put it in an article that we could end up saying, no, it's a moot point? I just don't wanna be caught short.
It will happen if, look, we know the expenses. $2,000, tomorrow's right here, $2,000 for insurance. Fuel, at least $5,000, $6,000 a year. And that's not going any further. So if something doesn't work out, we're on the hook. As long as everybody knows that, that's a fact. It's our building. So,
I mean, it's,
Samara knows better the expenses than I do.
I'm looking at it.
So I'm gonna ask Bruce, Bruce, you feel that we should or should not put aside some extra money just in case?
I don't know the people, so yes, I guess so.
Okay. Chris, what do you feel?
I think that the person who's running 2 businesses has expressed interest in taking over the lease, and we have expressed that we are going to commit to that. So I am not seeing a need to do it personally.
Dave?
I don't feel the need to do it, and we don't have enough information to make a number that is relevant. And I guess I would just add, tomorrow the furnace could die in that building.
Oh, don't start.
And we'd have to figure out,
A loan?
we'd have to do a short-term loan or something, deal with
Yes, we would.
it. In a way,
Very good,
if they close and we have to do something, we don't have the money, it's no different.
perfect,
So I
thank you.
don't know that we
Gwen?
need to.
Same,
You
ditto.
know,
All right, that makes sense, then I guess if we have an issue, we'd have to go and,
Take a
take a
loan.
loan.
And then, okay.
The bottom line, we're a small town and it's very precarious for us.
Yeah, it is.
All right,
But
You
you're
have-
right, you're right, Dave, anything can happen.
$900 in reserve, approximately $972 or something like that is a capital expense reserve. You could use that.
we
Where was
moved that
that?
to general fund last meeting.
It's not in that fund, but it doesn't, the capital expenditure fund is held in the general fund. No, you're talking about the loan fund.
Yes, it's a $900.
That's different.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about that.
So we're gonna close that fund?
Yeah, we moved last
We
month.
voted.
We voted that.
Voted last, put it
Good
Okay, I
down.
didn't
Good-
read the minutes
Good that we
there.
told you, huh?
Yeah. Effective immediately?
What was
Just close
that?
the balance?
When you read the minutes, it's,
And just go into
Move
the
it to
fund
the general
balance?
fund.
Okay.
oh, that was the loan thing.
The home improvement,
Yes.
Move fund balance. Okay,
yeah,
good.
close the home improvement loan.
The home improvement loan fund be closed and money to be transferred to the general fund, seconded by Ms. Cantor.
Okay, cool.
okay. All right, so we're continuing, any other line
that's
item
nice.
changes, Mr. Lewis?
So the only thing I'll say about the Wyndham Regional Commission is we have $1,200 budgeted. That's obviously the number we're gonna
That's
lock
the
in.
number we're gonna go with if we
Right.
don't have anything else.
Well, we're gonna go with it because we have to vote it tonight, so
Right.
that will be the
Well,
number.
you want me to, let me rejig the numbers, because you don't have the right numbers in these reports anymore.
I mean,
Because we just took $18,000 out of the total.
Yeah, I figured that amount of math I could
Yeah, I
probably
mean, the
handle
amount, I can,
if everything else
I'm
was.
just gonna go
Okay,
through it.
cool.
Was there any other ones? Before she goes and,
That's the only thing that was still, oh, sorry, the only change was that. Yeah, I don't think so.
that was it.
Okay, but just so you're clear, a couple years ago, you put $972 into a capital expenditure reserve.
Correct.
That has nothing to do with the loan fund.
Okay, I just had the 900 and I was thinking you were
Yeah,
talking
so,
about something
yeah.
that we,
Okay.
okay.
I'm gonna go change a couple numbers, but actually, before I do that, so that you have a clean copy of what the number should be, I wanted to explain the budget surplus, and when you get to, if you're ready for that.
Let's see.
But if you're
Well,
not,
I think it's in item B, discuss the surplus. So if we haven't made any motions on any other changes, do we move to discuss the surplus at this time then?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
It's part of it.
And because I have a question about something that I read in previous minutes, go ahead.
okay, so, I'm going to direct your attention to the consolidated balance sheet, which is about, it's the second from the last page in the package I gave you. And if you go to the general fund, if I put on the plastic, it would have been good, but I didn't. And you go all the way down to,
Unrestricted.
fund balances, unreserved, unrestricted, and reserved restricted. Okay, see those two lines? Go past assets, past liabilities, fund balances, first column, unreserved, unrestricted versus reserved, restricted. Okay, the top number, the 3381, that's the amount that's the surplus.
Right.
Okay? Because everything else, even though the P and L shows a $34,000 surplus,
Oh, what a new world.
most of it is already tied up in reserve funds. And I can explain to you the technicalities of how that happened, but you don't need to know. Okay,
I'm going to ask you something about that surplus, because a few years ago, when we had a surplus, we moved $2,000 of the surplus to a fund to reserve for an audit.
you have there's $4,000 in total now.
I went back and reread it. Every year, we put $2,000.
No,
No.
That's what it says, though.
no.
No, it was determined, at the meeting, we decided that was not a great idea. It says that was amended, and if it doesn't say it in the minutes, it should.
No, it was amended.
It was amended, and somewhere in town meeting minutes, there should be a discussion about that. Because that was the way it was originally warned,
Right.
but we all went, wait a minute, a lot of people said, that doesn't make sense. I don't wanna make up my mind for stuff going forward, I think we should warn it every year if we're gonna do it.
Right.
So we don't collect $2,000 every year for an
No.
audit? When was the last audit the town has had?
2010. And an audit's gonna cost somewhere between 12 and 20 grand.
And you didn't put it in for this year, though?
We
as a
have
line item.
4,000, I did not put it in as a line item. One year, we actually raised the funds as a line item, the first year. I forget which year that was, probably 2015 or 16. And then one year, we took 2,000 out of the surplus and added it to that reserve.
Right.
And so we're up to 4,000, because I really do think at some point, the town should have an independent audit.
And you don't think we should collect
Especially because
$2,000 this
I
year?
really don't want to continue on indefinitely as treasurer, I'm sorry folks, I just can't do it. So, and I've been here since 2011, and when I started, the deal was, Samara, just come in for 3 months. So, that was the pitch that was given to me. So I think we're in really good shape, and I will talk in more detail about what I'd like to do, but
Sonora?
not tonight, it's not on the agenda.
All right.
And I will stay on, at least through the end of this fiscal year, so no worries. But I'm gonna go change your numbers so you have good numbers, so.
Okay. All right, so that was the only other thing I had, as far as changing to line items, we can.
Yeah,
money towards the
okay.
audit.
I'm gonna, yeah,
But
So do I understand that the surplus of the budget is $3,381?
yeah, rounded.
Wasn't 20,
Pardon?
it wasn't 20.
It's
Because I know you
not-
said that
no,
you weren't sure.
If you look at the net, the bottom line of your P and L report, you're gonna see a $34,000 surplus. Some of that is, actually, there's no accrued delinquent taxes in that number, and there's a reversal, so on a cash basis, it's a little bit higher, but what happened is we had a $21,000 amount put in a couple years ago that somehow is figuring into that, and then we do have a real surplus that was caused because that we had revenues higher than expected and expenses lower than expenses, and I worked out a more or less detailed analysis.
Okay,
But last year, when Frank, one of the auditors said, Samara, when you're calculating the surplus or deficit, do you count the reserves? And I said, I don't know. I should ask. And so at that point, our town report was done. So we did it the way we always did it. We counted them. And this year, I actually emailed the accounting guru at VLCT, and he said, here's how I think we should have been doing it. And he goes, yes, you're right. This is how you should have been doing it.
Which is?
Which is
Pull that out.
to take out all the money that's already reserved. I'll be happy to explain it to you, but it bears my pulling up NEMRIC reports and showing you what I mean, and then it'll jump right out and hit you in the face, and you'll go, oh, of course, duh. Sorry. Does this make sense to anybody? You don't need to know all the technicalities.
I just wanted to
So
know what the number was.
and part of the other problem was that, remember last year how we put money into reserves?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the auditors, in one of their questions to me is, show me where those reserves are. And when I looked at my balance sheet, I went, oh, right. Those belonged in this year, not next year. So I put them in as of 7/1/18, because that's typically, so see, that's how the 21,000 ended up in last year's instead of the year before last, when we had a deficit, because we voted the tax, we didn't raise the tax until the following fiscal year to resolve the deficit. So your cash ends up in like funny timing things. And in the case of the reserve that everybody established for the end of 2017, I should have just put it in right on the spot, like, oh, okay, I can post this now because we're in the next year. Not like I have to raise new taxes for it. So I had to rejig the fund balance reserves.
But to the best of your knowledge, this is all
To the
now
best
nice
of
and
my
balanced.
knowledge,
This is,
it's good until,
It's
and
not.
I don't know what the auditors have looked at this point anymore.
3381. All right.
all right, 3381 is the unreserved, unrestricted
So we will
surplus
decide
for the
that's-
2018.
That's the $20,000 balance.
That's it, yeah, that's,
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Very simple question.
so, what do we want to do for the wording of the article?
So this is on Dave's sheet, it's
On my
Article
sheet, it's
12.
Article 12.
Okay, I've got so many sheets in front of me, let's see, 2019. Shall the town apply the budget surplus for the 2017-18? Is that the right years?
So,
Yeah, the last
Yeah.
17-18,
yeah.
not 18-19?
Yeah, it ended
Okay,
June 30th.
17-18, okay, thank you. 'Cause
We're
But in the
18-19,
amount
yeah.
of 30, what was the number, 3381. In the following manner.
2,000 for the auditor?
Yeah, I would like to, we have a church building, we have 5 buildings, I don't know if we wanted to put some more into capital improvement
Yeah,
reserve.
I would lean towards, unless we think we might want more in like tax abatement reserve, which we had done last year, or the audit, I think it, personally think it should all go to capital improvement reserve.
I agree.
But that's just. my
Capital
opinion.
improvement, we can pull it from anything, for anything, if you want.
Right,
That's kind of a good emergency fund, so
yeah.
all of a sudden,
If we
the
don't,
boiler blows up, we got a down payment.
Do
Because
you have a
now,
copy of that article that I proposed for the,
Yep, we have it.
now that we
I
have,
just wanted to share it with Mark.
now that we see
I
what
don't have
happens,
a
current
article
piece.
for the
All right, so what's
So
the
do we do
pleasure
that?
of the board? Should we just go through?
Thank you.
First, for the gonna do with the surplus, the 3381?
What, capital gain, capital improvement funds,
Chris?
fire departments.
Ditto.
Ditto,
Ditto.
ditto, ditto, okay, so we're gonna put in dots, actually, only did, dot getting that.
So that'll be sitting there.
All right, so $3,381 will move to a article to put it to the capital improvement reserve.
How are we going to word that exactly? Because we have to vote on the wording, correct?
It's gonna be worded
Shall the town?
exactly like it is now, and then it will say where their dollar sign and X's are, it will say 3381, and next to it, it will say capital improvement reserve.
Okay.
As I recall, once we figure out all of these, I am going to have to read this entire thing,
Correct.
and we're going to have to vote on it.
Correct.
So we'll get, so I'm,
Today?
yeah,
Today,
Yeah.
because we have to warn it,
Tonight.
today. We don't have another meeting,
Yeah.
or just make the
because
changes.
it has, we have to,
We
yeah.
have to agree
So-
to
We
it.
have to agree to make
Line by
sure
line.
it's, we did it last year, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Just get some lemon water.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what do we have in the capital improvement fund? What's the ongoing total?
$956 was put in last year, I don't know where, but that was the first donation to that fund.
So we're gonna have just shy of
Let's see.
$4,200 right now in there.
Unless it,
Was that absolutely the first thing that
was that the first
I'm
time
not
there was a
sure.
capital improvement
So
fund?
we're
I
gonna-
think so.
So we're adding the 3,200 to that fund? Dot?
That is where it would be going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get
One that
an
had-
idea of what the total is.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's a, well, it's a capital improvement reserve. We call it, it's a reserve, so maybe
Yeah.
it's part of the general.
It's under
fund.
the reserved restricted funds,
Is it part of the,
because it's already
so
restricted.
it's part of the general fund?
Yes,
Why would it be restricted?
because it's only to be used for capital improvements.
So we don't have a balance for that to know what's in it right now,
Okay.
I don't think.
Well, right here, she's got an unreserved unrestricted balance of 7188. I don't know if
I
that,
guess what I don't know is if that's the only,
I think that's everything.
that's everything that's.
oh, that's everything.
Yeah, so
right.
it's not just the
That's
capital
the
improvement, and that
3,381 to
presumably would be
938.
restricted.
Right.
Oh, 938.
It goes.
That-
I'm assuming
yeah,
it's-
that's
So
what
she
the
has to,
we have.
yeah, that has to come
It's
out. That
part of
goes
the
Right.
459 probably, but I guess it's a little hard to know. Anyway. Okay, so that's the surplus in the working.
What was the community fund? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Dot, what was the
Community fund was monies raised by Archie and Leanne for activities like for
Oh, I
running,
remember, I remember, I know what you're talking about.
for running
Years ago.
high school socials and
Yep, I remember.
Easter egg hunt.
Easter egg hunt.
equipment said
Okay, so
That means we-
7C,
We're gonna have to straighten out this.
200 down
With,
payment.
with David
the
wants.
wheeled
That means
excavator.
it's $17,000.
All right, so the wheeled excavator.
Article 11 on the.
Right,
And these
so
notes-
Guy has printed out a copy of what he emailed this afternoon
Right.
$200 a month.
as proposed
So
language for the article.
What, 12,
And we can
13,
discuss it once
$14,000
everyone's
a year.
looking at it.
Take that 13, 14 from the 39. I
That's
still have plenty of room there.
Got, is he printing more of them? Who do you-
Waiting on you, we're waiting on you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, we're gonna talk right now your article.
About the-
Shall the voters
oh,
authorize the
excavator.
purchase of a used 2011 Trex EW 110 wheeled excavator in an amount not to exceed $94,000 to be financed over a period not to exceed 5 years. The loan will be financed through the Vermont Municipal Equipment Loan Fund at a rate of 2%. An application must be submitted by April 1st, 2019. Loan structure is as follows. $94,000 purchase price maximum, $23,500 minimum, which is 25% is required for down payment. $23,500, what's this rental, the rental credit of $62.25. The existing town equipment fund of 17, let's explain this.
Okay, the
Explain these
17
three things.
from the this is the amount that we need to borrow, 94,000.
Right.
And then $23,000, 23.5 is the 25% required down payment.
Right.
We're gonna
Take
write a
that,
credit.
now they're gonna give us the Vermont Municipal is allowing us to use this credit toward the down payment. So this is all that's left that we have to come up with a down payment. This down payment will be coming from the equipment fund, which has a balance right now of about between $40,000 and $45,000. So if we take that 17,000 from there,
So,
that'll satisfy the $23,500 for the
Down payment.
Down payment.
down payment.
And so,
And this is how much we would finance, a loan for 5 years at 2%, and it comes out to about $1150 a month. But I
okay,
didn't think that was necessary to put the $1150 a month, it's just.
and that's gonna basically come out of our savings of not having to.
Right, exactly. We basically, we put $39,000 a year toward rental equipment and vendors and so forth.
Right.
14,000, which would be the payment for that equipment,
Comes
would
out.
come from that, and that would
We're
still
gonna
leave
save
us
it.
enough money to do what we have to do, and we'd also control our own destiny.
Oh, yeah.
That also includes a brand new cutter blade that we rented, $6,000, that's included in the purchase price, and those figures are only today. When it's approved,
Negotiated.
I will go back to the vendor and say, is there anything else you can do for us?
appreciation.
But that would be the maximum.
Correct, perfect. Alright. How's that for your Article 11?
Well, so we had a little bit of discussion about, before people came in, about, and this is fine if we want to do this, are we sure we want to put all of this detail in the article?
Well,
You know, that's it.
I mean,
what you have there now, you mean, Dave?
no, guys, so sorry, that's what we were just looking at, guys.
Yeah, I don't, like I say, that's,
Let you explain it. It'll come up for a the article will come up for a question from David, he'll read it, and then it goes to the floor, and that's when the explanation comes in, and you explain
that's fine,
it.
but I just gave you the figures so you all know
Right.
what I'm talking about, that you're all on the same page, there's no surprises come town meeting.
No, Dave, you don't need to repeat all that.
So the only thing I would say to, and Guy and I talked about this a little bit, that my original article on my sheet was just to say blah, 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 the amount, finance over period not to exceed 5 years. I think it is important to include the second sentence that
April.
Guy has, that the loan will be financed through blah, 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 and application must be submitted by April 1, 2019. Because that has to happen before the
Which starts
next
in
fiscal
July.
year, which is what generally we are voting on things
That's a
for.
thought.
So
That's
just,
a thought.
so maybe the article should be that paragraph, without the detail of the loan structure, but making it clear that this is gonna be applied for less than a month after town meeting.
Perfect.
Is everybody,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't have a problem
is
with that.
everybody comfortable with that? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
because it's
Then
not.
he'll explain it like Bruce
He can
said,
explain the detail
when
of it.
people start asking questions.
Right.
Don't
I mean, if
ever
you're
enjoy
okay
this
with
guy.
that.
You
don't
can
get
clear it
that.
all up, and they'll vote on it, yes or no, and we're.
Well, when I just explain it to you, do you all get the gist of what?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I understand
So,
where the money's coming from.
Just so that,
I was a little concerned that you didn't have it in order for the down payment, but you clarified it.
yep, the down payment's
Yeah,
there,
you
that's
clarified.
25, yep.
You don't want it coming out of taxes, I
Okay,
go with that.
excellent.
Or.
No, it's coming out of an existing
I
fund.
know that.
That we, if you look at your thing, we put $4,000 every year toward that fund. So we have enough money
Money's
there.
That's great,
Money's there, we're good.
that's awesome.
We don't
All right,
have to raise
so
the budget, I'm happy.
That all makes sense.
Article 11 is pretty much covered, Article 12 is covered,
Yeah.
7D.
13,
So 7D, if we go down the agenda,
7B.
So basically, we're
But see what?
gonna leave the structure.
The agenda.
Oh,
Right.
the agenda. So 7D in the agenda, I just don't wanna.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We've
D.
hit 7D.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Discuss the town report booklet, any changes, dates?
We were doing this, why are we skipping something else?
Well, because unfortunately the agenda is, I mean, the agenda item wasn't discuss wording for the warning.
Oh,
It's kind of piecemeal, so we're jumping around, but we don't have to. Should we all agree that we're gonna finish discussion?
Yeah, finish
Wording
that.
all the
Yeah,
articles?
finish,
Yeah,
let's
and then
finish
we'll
the
go back
line.
to-
I can-
Right, I know, but realize that that's not
We'll be here
how
all
the
night if we
agenda,
don't get some more.
that's not how the agenda's laid out.
Stop.
Well, I don't care.
We are allowed to modify the agenda as we go through it. To add or delete is something, but we can say with this.
I just get
Okay.
confused when you jump around.
No, that's fine, I was just trying to
Yes.
follow
No,
it, so we
right.
weren't
I was
getting lost.
with you.
I am lost.
Okay, so Article 13. So now, after our discussion, do we think that probably the wording of this should be more, shall the voters, well, how did we word the
Shall the-
old one? How did we word it? I mean, it's essentially the same as the 2016 one, with a different amount.
Shall the town voters approve the appropriation of up to $11,000 for recycling costs for the fiscal year 2018? Was Article 11 on the morning
Yeah.
2017. So shall
Okay.
the town voters approve the appropriation of
We
up
don't-
to
Yeah.
$18,000?
We don't need to have town voters. I've noticed that a bunch of our articles are not really written the way even VLCT says, so we'll just say voters.
You said it.
Okay.
So so it'll be,
Shall,
shall the voters, I'm just writing it down so I can read it correctly.
Okay.
Shall the voters approve the appropriation of up to $18,000 for recycling costs for fiscal year 2020,
Yes.
right?
Right, because we're 18, 19 now.
Right.
Right, 20, 19, 20. Isn't it 19, 20, Dave? Isn't it 20,
Well-
19 to 20, 20?
Well, no, I think at least in this one, I think we typically just refer to it as fiscal year.
20.
Like, if you look at the appropriations breakdown, we're calling the new ones our fiscal year 2020.
Right.
Uh-huh, yeah, okay.
It's a fiscal year that ends
Yeah,
in
2020.
2020, so,
Okay.
yeah. So shall the voters approve, sorry, let me just write this down so I read it correctly.
No, we had a pizza or something.
all I can hear is living in my ears.
Oh, my tinnitus.
That's my ear.
You too, huh? You got tinnitus too, oh,
Is the
man.
ringing in my ear bothering
When
me?
you're done.
I love it right now. Stop.
Are those voices in my head bothering you?
Okay, so Article 13 is going to read, shall the voters approve the appropriation of up to $18,000 for recycling costs for fiscal year 2020? Question mark.
Yep. And then they can fight it out. And we can watch
And then
them
we
fight
can
it
have
out.
a lot of discussion and talk about all the
Pros and cons.
pros and cons and whatever, and it'll be
Right,
really.
and it's not in the budget now, so they have to understand that, or whatever.
Right. Okay, so then
Next one.
Article 14 is basically the same as what we had last year, except Monday. So shall the
Right.
town vote to change town meeting day to the Monday preceding the first Tuesday in March pursuant, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right, that's what we wanted to,
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
you put a time in it or just say Monday?
well, I think we didn't before because we set the
Oh,
time.
then they
Board
just
sets
that's
the
it,
time.
okay.
However,
We
during
should
discussion,
emphasize
it
it.
should be emphasized that
It's not gonna be, right. It
Not
will be
Monday morning.
Right, right.
Right.
I mean, I guess if people had a real concern about that, they could amend it to set the time, but,
or to Monday.
They'll discuss it.
Yeah, but that's up to them
yeah,
and up to the new board.
right. Shut up.
What are you talking?
The old new board?
So then, and then Article 15 is just to transact any other business that may legally come before this meeting.
Okay, now we gotta,
We have
so we're done with all that.
rogue articles in the agenda
Road articles, Mellows at it
that
again.
are on the agenda.
Right,
Okay, so
So-
you can cut out F right off.
the town center one,
Or-
That was when we had no renter, so I
Right.
could say,
So that was with the daycare building?
yeah.
Oh,
It wasn't the
okay.
center of town.
Okay, I didn't
Okay,
understand.
alright, yeah, I didn't
Okay,
know
all
what
right.
it was.
No,
So we're gonna say we don't need to worry about that. And then there's the Vermont Arts Council.
this is to discuss whether or not we're gonna consider getting a grant to put heat in the meeting house.
This is, this is to consider
No.
whether or not the town supports this so that we could invest the time needed to write the grant.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. You're the 580 Chapin, not me.
Right, for the right.
The select board will expound on that during the meeting?
Yeah, me.
Okay, that's good.
So sorry, what is the wording of this gonna be?
I don't know.
I didn't understand anything about it, so I didn't draft.
The idea is to open it up for discussion whether there's gonna be heat now.
Hold on, shall the town vote to apply for a grant from the Vermont Arts Council to fund the adding of insulation and heat to the Brookline Meeting House? All right.
Amen.
Simple, yeah.
Simple.
Shall
Shall the
So
town
it's
already
vote?
worked out.
he's writing it down.
To approve.
I'm in.
I had
Good,
emails.
I'm glad you're in.
Shall the
There were a lot of things in that email that I didn't.
Lots of
I have 3,000.
Yeah, I know.
Tradition,
They were like,
Shall the town vote
the
to
preservation.
apply for a grant?
sorry,
Oh,
shall the
okay.
town vote to,
Down the bottom.
right here.
And that's it, is that the last one? And that's all. Highways and roads, and I hope Mark's got a real short list.
Well, we're still gonna have to read this.
Yeah,
whole
we're
thing
nowhere
Whole
near
thing
done.
over.
We still need the new numbers.
Get too much into this meeting.
This is number 15.
This is 15.
Okay. So we need Samara's updated numbers.
Yeah.
And
But
then
then, text.
you don't have to be the reader. I could read it if you want. But you're the one who wrote it.
Well, that, yeah, I guess I
I could do the
feel
other.
like I have it's a pieces of, a bunch of pieces of stuff at the moment, but I think I have a. So here's something that would be really helpful while we're waiting for Samara, is could somebody, does somebody have our last appropriations sheet of the, Red Cross and all that stuff?
From last year?
Last
Is
year,
there
last
something?
week.
Yeah, it's in the book, yep.
Well, no, but is there something in the new booklet that she gave?
There's this. So she added.
Oh, okay, all
Yeah.
right, so I didn't have that. So I went off of my
So the
last,
difference is.
So could
she
somebody
included this
just-
in here and it was an added 100, and that's, so it's 6306 on her list, 6206 that you have here. Otherwise.
oh, because she's counting Jorda, which was a
last
separately worn
Oh, right, yeah.
thing, which I have not, which is not included in the list.
Which she didn't apply this year.
Huh. I wonder how we do that. Would that be included? Because it wasn't, yeah.
What's your question?
Is there, I'll ask, well, my question is, I guess I could add this. Do we, yeah, I guess we're including people who didn't request so that we can include them in the total from last year, I guess.
So there's two things that didn't request this year.
Jorda and
Jorda's
project
paid
fees.
1,000. So they aren't on this list that you've made, but that means these numbers probably don't add up to 6306 or 6206, it probably adds up to 6106.
6106 is probably what it is.
So, but we appropriated a total of 6306 last year.
This is why. So, Gerda's, yeah, I guess I used that.
This is what I have.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm just trying to, let's go back and look at, I mean, if we
We
have
did
that
that,
situation.
well, no, I was removed, no,
It's
yeah.
just a little odd from a
I said across the.
Right,
to wording standpoint, to show, to list something that was not requested.
Well, we didn't approve Gerda's.
Well, they never requested it.
Requested.
Did we ever
And
get,
we wouldn't.
did we get the Leland and
We
Gray?
have not typically displayed things that
That's
we
it.
Yeah,
didn't approve, or that we didn't
Did that come in, Chris?
present to be
It's in the
approved.
list.
Oh, okay.
It's in the list, yeah.
So, it's just, maybe it's just not happened before recently.
Samara?
I guess we could, I guess we'll just add,
But we didn't
Gerda.
we didn't approve, did we approve to give her $100?
Yes.
no.
No, we didn't.
Well, that's what we're saying, that, so then do we?
You don't even put her name in there because
That's-
we
yeah.
didn't approve it.
Which, that's what I guess that's what I thought originally, but,
Looks like you did it correctly on your sheet here.
well, so if we're okay with this, well, but here's the thing that, no, I don't think it is right to do that. Because I think the idea of the total all appropriations requests to be voted, total, is to show the number, the overall total number that was voted upon last year.
Right.
And there's no way to have that add up correctly
Unless we put
in
her
the
name in
detail,
there.
unless we put Gerda and
So it's
Townsend Food Bank in it.
slash,
So it would be
she
for, not for, exactly, I guess, it would be, for last year it would be $100, and for this year it would be
Zero.
nothing.
Correct,
Got it.
all right.
And it's
Which-
requested, so they didn't request, so it's reflecting that they didn't request.
But well, you're doing it.
Or is that us requesting? That's our request.
Bruce?
Yeah, I think that's what I mean.
So just so you're aware, this adds to 6106,
Yeah,
just so you know.
yeah,
Yeah, I did the whole thing.
no, yeah, and that number I didn't really even look at, because I figured
Yeah.
it was the number that we voted on, because I thought, because that is the number, 6206 is the number that we approved,
Right.
bar Gerda's, which was a separate article. So,
Someone's gonna count this up and say, where's the $100, right? Is that what you're
Someone
saying?
will.
someone will, so, okay, so I'll put that back in with 100 for last year and then nothing for this year. And then I got to do the same thing for project fee, 1,000.
Oh, goodness.
And then if someone says, why is there nothing there? And then
We'll be here till midnight.
Right.
Okay.
Let's pick it up a notch.
Well, we need
We need numbers to
And then
go
we can
back through it.
get through this and vote on.
While we're waiting for numbers, can I suggest that we table item, or that we, item 7E,
D,
E?
Use them.
I mean, D, to discuss the town report.
All right, let's do, I don't wanna take, okay, you wanna,
Oh,
wanna discuss
you wanna
item-
table something? We went through everything else in 7.
Yeah, we did.
okay,
The
so,
only thing we didn't do is we didn't discuss the town report.
Right.
okay. you wanna
So
go-
we could discuss that
Let's,
now.
while we're waiting for the numbers.
Because it will have gone to the printer by the time we meet next.
Okay.
So I wasn't wild about the pricing that I've gotten from Springfield Printing. Based on this, I think it's probably gonna be 28 pages, which is basically half of what it was last year. And the printing price went down $74. So I've asked the guy there to look at the pricing again, and I asked him a bunch of questions, and I haven't heard from him in a few days. But in the meantime, I reached out to R.C. Brayshaw, who is, I don't know if you remember, Guy, you got an email
Yep.
a few weeks ago from a printing company in New Hampshire that does a bunch of town reports.
Right.
I had them quote it I'm actually, I have to remember to get a copy. Do we have more 2017 town reports?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, I need to grab one, because one of their guys is gonna stop by my house tomorrow and get a copy of it, just to confirm. It seems at first glance like their price is going to be significantly less than Springfield Printing.
Who's this?
If so, they're going to print it.
R.C.
It says
Bradshaw.
R.C. Brayshaw, they're called. They're a printing company in Walpole or somewhere near Walpole. They have a couple of different
And you found
facilities.
them on,
They do a bunch of Vermont and New Hampshire town reports.
Oh,
He sent me a list of, they did Putney's and Wardsboro's and some other people. Anyway, I'm gonna, assuming that their price stays the way I think it's going to, then they're going to print it.
Anything else?
But anyway,
Is Prospect,
I still honestly haven't looked to see what we have for
Prospect is-
content, but we'll figure
It's
that
out
out.
of business.
The schedule, in case
They're
anyone
part of-
cares,
That's what I wanted to know.
is it's, I'm gonna format it all
They're part of
over the
something
weekend of
else
the
now.
26th and 27th of
Not
January.
Prospect anymore.
We will then quickly proofread it, Samara, auditors, us maybe, Julie Livorni if she's still around.
Ask David Parker, just to make sure that we haven't missed some warning we should have put in, or put in the wrong warning like we did one year.
oh, you're talking about school.
Okay, yep, we can do that. I guess I'd also
You're talking about
suggest
school
thing.
that as far
So-
as warning could go to him far in advance of that, but then anyway, we'll proof it and stuff, and then I'm gonna try to finish it and get it to them by the first or the fourth worst case scenario, which gives them to, I mean, it has to be
23rd?
in the mail by the 23rd,
Right.
February 23rd, and it should be comfortably before that.
Yeah, if we get it in earlier
Question.
that week, that would.
What was my
Yeah.
question? Oh shoot, I forgot my question. Oh,
Thanks.
Did we change any numbers, you asked me?
yeah, the one thing you need to know on this form, and I know this is something I talked to the auditors about. They use a number from the school board report, in our tax estimate. So that's something that they can't complete, or they'd have to leave blank, or they'd have to make some wild, crazy guess. You know, it's not something you guys, we vote on or anything, but it's good informational stuff for the taxpayers so they can see the whole projected tax, the education tax. So one thing they were concerned on when you told them we didn't need a report for the school, for our town report, is are we gonna get that number on time?
Sorry, so
Well, they should
The
still be
tax-
producing their own report, they do that regardless of.
Yeah, so what if you, there's a
sorry,
number in the tax estimate right here, this number, the gray area, this comes from the school board.
Yep,
And it impacts this, and it impacts the total tax burden.
This is
Frank
CLA
always gets
95%, I thought we were over 100.
Well,
We
don't
don't-
this year, yeah, it's 100.
don't they
0.33.
sorry, but
Last
how
year
does
was
the
this.
town report have anything to do with that?
It goes in our report.
Yeah, no, I know, but
So,
it's a chicken and egg thing, isn't it?
I think that, yeah, I don't
How
know,
would-
you know, they,
How
I
would we put
guess,
something in the report
Next
if
year
they
it's
haven't?
over 100.
How
they,
is the, yeah, sorry.
Frank always gets the number from the school report, because we insist that they get us their school report before we do our town report. So this year, because we told them we didn't need their school report, I know they were concerned we aren't gonna get the number for our report.
The auditors were concerned.
auditors.
Okay, sorry, I was
Yeah.
confused by who we're.
This is
Not the
proposed,
Right.
and the
But
actual
presumably
The
the
actual number's
school
gonna be
has this
100.
number,
This is 98 then, actually.
I hope so.
or it's
That's
not
2000.
merely
So
the
would
writing.
one of the auditors get that information from?
They
1920 is
should.
not on there.
All right, so the auditors
Okay.
should contact.
They should
contact.
Yeah, the auditors
Yeah,
should
I
contact
think they know that, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Do you think that's, are you sure they know?
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna, I'll bug them, but this is the actual surplus, not rounded. So this, what I did is I had to show the auditors a reconciliation of how the reserves are. So this is straight out of, the account straight out of NEMRIC. And this is how it looks in our NEMRIC system, which is why it's so gosh darn confusing. You get these bottom line numbers, but it's net of all the reserve. So that's how we
So speaking of which, we were wondering, the capital improvement
the capital
currently
improvement
has
is currently
just the
has
956.
That was the first time we had it.
Okay, all right.
956.
Okay, we weren't sure about that, but
And the
yeah.
tax abatement was 2,500, but it got used up, a lot of it.
We're putting more in for that?
But if you put more in, so here were the current balances as of June 30th, 18. These right here at the bottom. I'll just give you my little, this is the same report I gave the auditors.
So you got your new
So they
numbers.
can
So, can I just, before we start to go through this then, okay, so the new numbers are
these are-
125, 230. Do we normally just round?
We
In the
normally,
articles?
we
We don't
do,
give the-
you know, you can do it either way, it doesn't matter. Round up if you want to, but
Well, I just mean, because we
Yeah.
haven't in prior years given the full sense. I mean, or at least unless we've lucked out
it
that it's never
depends,
worked that
some
way.
years they do, some years they don't, it's your call. For rounding for, 81, rounding 499 to 500 is like no big deal in my book.
Well, I just meant, no, I literally just mean the bottom line number for operations is $125,230.35.
That's.
Are we warning the article to say we're raising for taxes for the general fund $125,230.35? Or just $125,000? 125, 230.
That's fine by me,
Okay.
if you want to round, but
Anyone?
here's my thought, here's
feel
my
different?
thought. In the practical world of getting this into NEMRIC and making everything, nothing is gonna round to the way we think
Oh,
of
yeah.
it anyway.
Right.
I just
right.
have to go with the total,
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
as close to the total as I can.
Yep.
So it's.
I didn't like that it was gonna fall 81 cents short.
What do you care? You're not gonna be here.
I'm gonna live in town.
Payback's a bitch.
I'll be a member of the community.
He brought it up earlier.
I'll bring my pitchforks and torches.
It's another birthday song.
Okay, so these are the same numbers that I magically
Are we
came
gonna
up
sing
with.
happy?
Whose birthday is it? Happy birthday, Pete. That's probably Trump.
Okay, so are we ready to,
Don't bring up the freaking
are we
fascist
ready to
felon.
read?
Okay,
Yes.
Are there other,
I am ready.
I don't think there's anything else we need to figure out, right? I think we have all of
Under what heading of the agenda is something being done now?
We don't have a clue. What is that?
this would be,
David's deep in numbers.
we didn't really have an agenda item for this.
I don't know.
It's still 7. We're still under lease.
We haven't really been involved in this.
Still under the 7? Changes to any, so we're not doing the audit, we're not doing an article for raising money for reserve for audit.
I'm
I would
ready for
skip
Dave
this
to
year.
read it.
All right.
I'm ready for Dave to read.
Okay, so,
Read to me.
I move that we approve the following as the warning for the 2019 Brookline Town Meeting. The legal voters of the town of Brookline are hereby warned to meet in the multipurpose room at the Brookline School Building in the said town of Brookline on Tuesday, the 5th day of March at 9 in the forenoon to transact the following business. Article 1, to elect a moderator. Article 2, to elect a town clerk. Article 3, to elect a town treasurer. Article 4, to elect a collector of delinquent taxes. Article 5, to elect all other officers required by law. Article 6, shall the town accept the auditor's report? Article 7, shall the town vote to approve the general and highway fund expenditures net of non-tax budgeted revenues for the town as follows. Amount to be raised by taxes for general fund, $125,230. Amount to be raised by taxes for highway fund, $158,269.
You know what, I would round up on one of them, because the total is gonna be under budget by $1 if you don't.
$125,231.
Or, in I don't care
270.
which fund, but one of the funds you should round
Or
up.
go to
on.
270 on the highway
Yeah,
fund.
go to 270 on the highway fund. That's
Okay,
what
so
I would do.
amount to be raised by taxes for highway fund, $158,270. Then, in my mind now, yeah. So total municipal taxes to be raised, $283,500.
Yeah,
That's because we don't have the recycle in there.
Okay, keep going. Article 8, to see what dates the town will vote to collect taxes. Here's the fun one. Article 9, shall the voters appropriate $6,136.50 to be raised by taxes in continuing support of the following organizations?
No, you
want me to
go
read it?
fast? I can do it real
I
fast.
mean, just read the detail of it, if you can figure out.
I'm gonna go organization, FY 2019 approved, FY 2020.
I don't think, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, it's the
Organization
official.
250,
All right.
250 or whatever.
American Red Cross, $250, $250. CRT, the current Connecticut River Transit, $125, $125. Gerda's Equine Rescue, $100, $0. Grace Cottage Foundation, $300, $300. Green Up Vermont, $50, $50. Groundworks Collaborative, $300, $300. Historical Society of Wyndham County, $250, $250. Leland and Gray Education Foundation, $250, $250. More Free Library, $250, $280.50. Project Feed the Thousands, parentheses, designated to Townsend Food Chef, $100, $0.
yeah, that's.
Senior Solutions, $500, $500. Sevka, $465, $465. VABVI-VT, Association for the Blind, $100, $100. Valley Cares Inc., $821, $821. Vermont Center for Independent Living, $80, $80. Visiting Nurse Alliance, $1,000, $1,000. West River Watershed Alliance, now Southwestern Watershed Alliance, that is in parentheses, $110, $110. Wyndham County Humane Society, $500, $500. Women's Freedom Center, $500, $500. Youth Services, $255, $255. Total all appropriations requests to be voted. The FY 2019 was $6,306. The FY 2020 is $6,136.50.
Well done.
Okay, Dave.
Article 10. Shall the town vote to collect its current taxes by its town treasurer pursuant to 32 VSA 4791? Article 11. Shall the voters authorize the purchase of a used 2011 Terex TW110 wheeled excavator in an amount not to exceed $94,000 to be financed over a period not to exceed 5 years? The loan will be financed through the Vermont Municipal Equipment Loan Fund at a rate of 2%, and application must be submitted by April 1, 2019. Article 12, shall the town apply the budget surplus from the 2017-2018 budget in the amount of $3,381 in the following manner. $3,381 to the Capital Improvement Reserve. Article 13, shall the voters approve the appropriation of up to $18,000 for recycling costs for fiscal year 2020. Article 14, shall the town vote to change town meeting day to the Monday preceding the first Tuesday in March pursuant to 17 VSA squiggle 2640B. Article 15. What's that?
That's the technical.
Article 15, shall the town vote to apply for a grant from the Vermont Arts Council to fund the adding of insulation and heat to the Brookline Meeting House? Article 16, to transact any other business that may legally come before this meeting. Dated the 16th day of January 2019, Dorothy Maggio, Bruce Mello, Gwendolyn Tanza, David Jones, and Chris Webb.
Second.
Can I,
Discussion?
yeah, can I get you guys to check your appropriations, because I just came up with different numbers.
Oh,
Sorry, just here, take
that's okay.
do you got
I don't
Curtis?
know, compare that list to
We
what you
didn't
got,
have
'cause
girders in,
I didn't have Gerdas and I didn't have green up.
but we have,
We're not giving them anything.
Green up?
right.
But
Green
Gerdas-
up we are, Gerdas were not.
Oh,
Clean up we are,
I thought I added mine.
Why we didn't get $150?
Here, let me add this.
Add up what we just voted on,
Right.
or well, what we're considering voting on.
Yeah, just add the 2020, if FY19 isn't
Perfect.
right, it wasn't right last year. So,
Oh, I have green up.
Yeah, I got it on mine
But
too.
maybe I didn't.
I'm adding Dave's
Yeah,
list.
add mine, don't see where it goes. I think I added it multiple times. Thought.
Okay, what do you got here? I don't do that. I don't do this.
I think we should have put Jorda's update on rescuing at the bottom of the agenda. Made her sit through it. Leaving the room, coming back in the room, sitting through all this.
Sure, then we'd be looking for a new representative to rescue.
Exactly,
So, I don't know, well, bye, smart.
yeah.
It came to 6136.50 on Dave's list that we just added up and approved.
Okay,
And that's with, two of them being $0.
right.
So I don't know where
I don't know where
6186.
she came with her number, she might have just.
What is her number off by?
$50. She added.
Oh, she said she didn't have green up.
Right, but Dave
But she has the
did.
same total.
Well, let's see what her. Okay, well, we're here.
Yeah.
250, 125, 350, 300, 250, 250, 280, 50, 500, 465. There's also a 100 missing in here, so I don't know. 821, 1,000, 110, 500, 550.
There was an equestrian something or other.
No, it's not on there.
So list is actually missing a 100 for the association for the blind anyway. So I'm gonna go with Dave's list, and Dave's list checks out at 6,136.50. Because then I don't know how this gets to here if it's missing $100.
Oh, right, because you're saying this, her list doesn't even add up to 6,136.50.
Let me just, since we're sleeping here, I will
Exactly.
add this up.
Okay, so,
You guys just been spoiled getting out of here at 9 o'clock.
You telling me?
Whole board meeting, 10:30, 11. but no.
Oh, no, we didn't.
We're gonna have 2 board members, but.
We had Bernadine run the show, she ran out of that old rug.
I think I just ran out of tape.
Good.
We took an hour off though.
Did
The
you?
executive
No,
session.
we're good.
What are you adding up, Dave?
You're right, I should stay home.
Okay, so actually, either I just did something really bad, or this is
hanging
where
out.
I got 5506
Oh,
for some
please.
listing as it is here. Unless I missed something.
590650.
I got 5506, so maybe.
In any event.
Anyway,
We
Dave's
didn't get
list
the right
checked
amount.
out at 61.
And that's what we voted on.
Yes,
what we
and that's what we have a second on when we need Bruce back to actually
Yes.
be on.
Yeah, we just.
Bruce, we need you.
Okay, so,
613650 is correct per the
Yeah.
listing.
all right, we
So
have a
what we
motion on
just-
the floor, we have it seconded.
Okay.
The appropriations is $6,136.50, and all the other articles. All those in favor of approving the warning for the 2019 Brookline Town Meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much for all the detailed work that you did on getting
Good
this
job, guys.
together.
Glad I didn't have to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on number 6? No?
Town clerk. Town clerk.
7? No,
Number 7, Town Clerk Report.
that's it.
We're all good. We have dog license being sold and everything's good.
Okay, Highway Report from the Road Commissioner, Guy Hansen.
There are no.
Right now, we're in the middle of winter, so the salt is good. We have sand and Archie's doing a great job.
Okay, Road Supervisor, Mr. Bills.
Don't go
The
along
only
with
thing new since last meeting, I went out with the grader, I made, hired the Clarks to truck us some 3/4 inch stone to put over the potholes.
Up in Athens.
So we covered the worst of the potholes, and I had a second load dumped for future potholes. We now have a ton of material at the town yard.
Perfect.
And that's basically it. They're, like, Guy said, we have a full salt bay, full sand bays, and we're just watching the weather.
Okay, very good. Thank you. New business, there is none. Old business, I'm going to table the dog ordinance revision, although we'd like to send out the ordinance with the 1 or 2 words. Chris, I'll check with you on that. I think there's a couple of words in the trespassing.
There's a couple words I think we can probably just make, no one has provided any additional feedback.
Right.
So we could probably make the change and warn the vote for next meeting. I will make sure I type it up and we can warn the vote for the next meeting for that.
Okay, very good. Then on the agenda to warn the vote for changing the dog ordinance revising. The logging in Brookline, I do have a policy, I will email it out to everyone.
You did, you
I
did.
have a hard copy of it, but we don't have
You
time
did.
tonight. I developed an ordinance, based
Okay,
upon the
that's
Cabot. I actually talked to the road commissioner up in Cabot, Vermont, and the town clerk there about the policy, and she said that since they did their policy in 1997, they had a $500 bond that they would request, but it should be upped because of the value of the road crews' time. So I would suggest that we make, I'll put 750
As
for
a policy
1,000
or an ordinance?
ordinance, but ordinance because then we can fine them if they damage.
Right, but to get to an ordinance, we'll have to go
We're gonna
through.
have, it's all specially worded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's in your
will
vote.
we be discussing or voting next?
I'm gonna email it out, we can have a brief discussion and vote, so we can do the dog and the ordinances at the same level.
So the key there is, if there are specific, if there's anything that like typos or something to edit, we need to make sure that that is solidified before we meet, or else we can't vote on it.
I have it. Do you want a copy to take home?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, you sent it, but I don't have it.
So
Oh, here.
I mean, one thing I think, and maybe we're not, well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
I wonder if we should be having more of a discussion about this
Okay.
logging situation before we
I can put it on the
decide that
agenda.
we're, because the Cabot model, I mean, I haven't looked at what you might have changed about it, and apologies if there is something, but the Cabot ordinance really has nothing to do with any of the citizen problems with logging.
No, basically it had the-
We can't deal with the time
Well-
of work, and it can't do with the noise, that's planning commission. All we can do is
And
road
no-
maintenance and,
Well,
And
Let's
noise
say-
is a separate ordinance.
No, yeah, I mean,
Now, we've already tried that route.
well, so I think that's part of the discussion is, I mean, I don't know, because I wasn't on the board, if we've considered a noise ordinance.
We
in the
did, about
past.
3 years.
I mean, I know when you see the town plan, as the planning commission.
all right, but maybe not the noise,
When
but
they did all the surveys, it's
Dave, that
the
gives you a
main
question.
thing that,
I think that,
I was on the board,
I
we considered
think-
noise ordinance
But-
and
but
shot
that's
down
fine.
a freaking heartbeat. Everybody pulled out their guns.
yeah, because the noise ordinance.
the only thing I'm gonna challenge is that the starting time. You can't tell me that the residents of the town don't have any rights over the logging industry. I find it very
I'm with you
difficult.
there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to look into that because
I'm with you there.
that's only one
I have
side.
looked into it, and this
Maybe
is
not.
what he's referring to, I didn't print out the whole thing, but I have the timing is not something that, there's noise regulations, but based upon this, the timing is not something that we can control, because it has to be it's weather dependent.
So then our residents basically have no say.
Correct, that's,
Because
because
it's
it's
a
an logging, agricultural business, it's like, you can't complain about the horses neighing and the cows mooing, because it's part of being in Vermont.
Yeah.
Part of being in a
So
rural.
for 4 or 5 years, those poor people on Whitney Hill have to listen to
Yes.
that.
Yep.
I do have to somewhat question though, I'm not so, and the logging, and we think that the agricultural nature and whatever the forestry protection guidelines, that covers that people, trucks being on roadways that are not the site of the logging.
I'm
There's nothing
I'm
that
gonna
can
give you this, because I haven't
necessarily.
downloaded the whole thing on my computer.
Maybe
If
there
you
isn't.
wanted to go and,
But I can understand the
That's just
noise
a-
as far as the
not
site
covered.
is concerned, but that's not really what anyone particularly is complaining about.
We
It's
can always.
it's virtually all the trucking of that.
Yeah. The J
Well, no,
shirts.
one of her main complaints was the.
Right, which is the trucking. That's not the logging
Yeah.
operation on the property.
Right.
It's the trucking of the.
But like
This is-
Forrester
this is
said,
the right
he's
number,
not in
right?
control of the trucks, the loggers, the guys
That's.
who's lining up, can you come get these logs, so.
Right.
Allow.
Yeah, and there may,
I'm
I
just a
mean, there
messenger.
may still not be anything that can be done about
I'm
it.
gonna read you.
What is the document?
okay, I
I wonder if
developed
it's
a
movable.
draft that we're going to spend a little time on at the next select board meeting
Yeah.
for a logging ordinance, which allows us to establish a permit for them to log, to be registered with the town, and they put a bond down to repair any damage done to ditches, culverts, or roads that is directly due to logging.
So
More
what
than
I'll say
500
is
bucks,
this. In our agenda,
More
we
than
can warn that we'll have a discussion. We could warn voting on the ordinance, but if we have to table voting on the ordinance, we
We
can
can
table
table
it
it,
to the
right.
next meeting.
Yeah.
But if we wanna do this before turnover on the board,
16,
then we have to do it at the end of
20th.
February, or February 20th.
20.
So that we can get all those logistical
In
things
the
out of the
papers
way
and,
and not leave it for Gwen and Bruce to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Dave's up for election, I can't guarantee we're gonna vote him in.
Exactly.
All right, we'll move on
They
then,
don't
so
put
old
it in there,
business,
I'm
dog ordinance and logging, okay. Communications, I told you I talked to Winston Prouty Center.
Yeah.
And I told you Tom Kabat has someone who's interested in getting on the planning commission. I told him to bring him to bring him in, we can meet him, and if he approves him, we can appoint him to the planning commission.
But wouldn't it just last for a week? Because then you have to reappoint for after the
But you know what, I'll
turnover.
talk to him about that.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay,
It's gotta be an open seat.
Okay.
Is it open?
I mean,
Well,
I-
no, they have
Next
terms.
year's-
don't they?
Yeah, terms.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it has to be more of.
Right.
at town hall, town meeting, okay, so,
Or
okay.
this is appointed though, isn't it? Is it
Yeah, we
appointed or
don't- we
elected?
Keep
It's
going,
appointed,
Don.
'cause
We don't vote on them.
Then it
Yeah.
gets
Okay.
appointed
They're not
for a
elected.
select board meeting after town meeting. correct?
Okay,
Yeah, that's the organizational meeting.
okay. Community email regular, all right, pay orders are coming around, payroll is coming around. As that comes around, we'll set the agenda for the next meeting on February 6th. One of the things I have is job description revision for the building's maintenance at 624 Grassy Brook Road. You wanted to change a couple of things?
Yeah,
So you already
I'll
signed
read-
this, we don't need to sign?
Maybe it's not something I give you while we have.
You want to sign, I have on here an agenda item to vote to sign the highway mileage report, but I've reviewed it. There is no need to vote. It's not changed in 2 years.
Yeah, we're just basically sign off on it.
So I'm going to sign off on that and remove it from the agenda.
Okay.
We can talk about town meeting, we can talk about Sunny Lane Daycare, and anything else your little heart's desire next time.
Right. So to clarify, planning commission is appointed, which means it would be appointed at reorganization.
Right.
And I want to bring a point up, Doc. I mentioned meetings ago about maybe, it doesn't have to be me, it could be somebody else, a building commissioner. Is that something that has to go in that report?
Any organizational meeting,
In the organizational meeting, could be brought up by vote?
yep.
Okay,
That You guys, who-
can vote for it. Okay.
whoever's on the,
Bruce and Glenn will vote for it.
What's Dave gonna do? Dave's gonna do a lot of typing.
If Dave runs again, we don't know. It's a mystery.
We did have an
I'm
item
planning on
here,
running,
which I
yeah.
skipped over, an email item, a regular mail item. I'm gonna read it real quick to you. Dear clients of the Townsend water testing, I have tried very hard to keep water testing costs at an affordable level, but I have recently seen an increase across the board for all of my expenses. There has been an increase for the courier service, including the fuel surcharges, postage, office expenses, laboratory fees, training, and licensing. Therefore, beginning in January 2019, my fees will increase to $70 per hour and $125 a month for the monthly systems. Please note that this is the first increase for many of you. Hourly rates have not increased in over 4 years. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your
This
business
is Nancy?
understanding of the matter. Thank you
Yes.
again. Have a healthy, happy New Year, Nancy Burke.
Now, how much of an increase is that, Doc?
$10.
$10. But we did have a reduction in the number of tests that we have to do with the building.
This does not need to be.
All right, so that was,
Okay.
all right, so sending the agenda, I just reviewed that. When you send the payrolls back,
All
I
right.
will,
Doc,
Sorry, I
the
sound.
water testing, you've already straightened it out with the state, yes? So that now that it's gonna be like quarterly or whatever? So
yeah.
she's done it this month, I see. She's done dated the
You know
6th.
what, I'm gonna call, I will talk to, I'm gonna take this with me, and I'm gonna call her and talk to her about the changes,
Oh, Jeffers, $495 for that repair.
okay?
Whew. Boy, you gotta keep the plumbers out of that damn building.
I know, those
Local
plumbers,
man, Steve Scalpo, that's beautiful, he's been great.
Sign the paper.
Boy, I'll tell you, he was kicking me.
Jeff was
Sign it.
plumbing.
Well, I'm not done, you mind?
Yes,
Sorry about the rush.
yes I do.
Okay, I'm good. Now all of a sudden, we're in a rush. I'm into it, there you go. I saw what I wanted to see.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve accounts payable warrant 2019-28
Okay, got that.
in the amount
That's
of
garbage.
$9,786.71. May I have a second? Seconded by Dave, is that Dave?
Chris.
Chris. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mike.
Hearing none, all those in favor of approving accounts payable 2019-28 for $9,786.71, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Accounts payable has been approved. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the payroll warrant 2019-27 in the amount of $2,170.98. May I have a second? Seconded by Chris, gotcha in that time. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving payroll warrant 2019-27 for $2,170.98, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, payroll has
Move to adjourn.
moved. I'm gonna move motion to adjourn, a second.
Second.
Bruce got that one. Any discussion? Hearing none,
Not that I'm on the
all those in
We already
favor of
already
adjourn.
discussed that.
You don't need a second for adjournment.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, I'll say it.
All
after
those in
Dave.
favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, 9:30.
I just want to say